had to be held by Vanguard until the day it was delisted from the S&P 500. So anybody that had the Vanguard, now here's another term for you, mathematically. It's a correlation. It's a one-to-one correlation. S&P 500 goes down 1,000 or whatever, then the index goes down right with it. I would rather have a fund or a portfolio that if the index goes down 50%, maybe the portfolio only goes down 35. I'd rather beat that, because if a fund goes down or if a portfolio goes down 50%, how much does it take for it to get back to even?
100%.
She's a math whiz.
Yeah.
It takes 100%. Can you imagine a book? Could you have anything that can earn 100% gain? 20% is good. So how many years is it going to take for 20% to get back up? 5 years. So you don't want to be in a 100% or equal one-to-one correlation in a portfolio. That's why I try to make sure. So the difference here is, I don't want to belabor this too long, active versus passive. Vanguard is passive. I prefer active management. And I want my managers to make decisions. It's going to cost more to get an active manager. It's going to cost more for a company to do an international fund or an emerging markets fund and pick companies in China and India and Malaysia and Brazil. It takes a lot of money. It takes research to do that. So yeah, you might pay a 1.5% expense ratio to get that fund. But it should outperform an index by maybe 1 or 2 or 3 percentage points over a long period of time. And in a long period of time, that's a lot of money. Yeah.
Isn't another problem with like the S&P 500 index fund is the problem that a company in there might be overvalued, and when you buy into that index fund, you buy more of the overvalued company and less of the undervalued company, because it's based on, isn't it based on the stock market valuation? I read something to that effect.
Let me tell you what the S&P 500 is, because that may be a term that you might not. S&P 500, if you took all of the companies traded on the New York Stock Exchange and stacked them up, and it was almost like an inverted pyramid, and it looks like this. So the small companies are at the bottom, and the biggest companies are at the top. What? Give me a big company name.
GE. Microsoft.
Microsoft. Huge. And these are big by what they call capital evaluation. That means that the number of shares they have times the value of all those shares outstanding put it in the huge category. Well, if you went to the top of the largest companies in the country and you went down and you drew a line at the 500, that's the S&P 500. That's the 500 biggest companies. How many companies are traded on the Dow Jones? 30. So when you look at the S&P 500 averages, you're going to see a number that doesn't move quite as fast, because that's an average of 500 companies, where the Dow is going to move a lot faster because it's 30. Now, obviously, the Dow 30 is going to include the ones that are in the S&P 500, so there is somewhat of a correlation. But the S&P 500 is the top largest companies. That's large cap companies. That's the top 500. There's 4,000 on the stock exchange, or so. So that means that there's 3,500 other companies that are in the smaller category. Microsoft was at one time at the bottom of the list, and it grew itself up. So